Welcome back. Now, on the show next week, we plan on having a national youth debate, and it's going to be between continuity and change, or transformation and change, like they like to say, between Team GEJ and Team GMB. We're going to be having that next Sunday on Rubbin Minds. But as a prelude to that, we're going to have members, or a member each from the political parties, to come here and give us sort of a taste of what they're going to be doing next week, giving us the reasons why we should be voting for either of the candidates. And here with me is Anthony Ehilebo. He's from Rethink Nigeria. He's also a member of the Presidential Campaign Organization of the People's Democratic Party. That's for being here today.
Thank you very much, Ebuka.
Let's start with PDP issues, of course. We're going to be talking a lot about Mr. President today, who is in Lagos, by the way, for a meet with GEJ, from what I think, meeting the youth here. Yes, there's a lot that has been said about Mr. President and how he has suddenly changed body language and everything about his presidency in the last couple of weeks because the elections have gotten very hot. Let's start with security in particular. Why has he suddenly become this person who suddenly loves the Northeast and has visited there a couple of times in the last 3 weeks? What has changed for him?
What has changed? Not a lot has changed, but what has happened is the lead up, the build up has now gotten to a nexus, gotten to a prime place in action. You know, when you talk about the terrorism, counter-terrorism measures and everything that's been happening in Nigeria, you will understand that it's a new phenomenon and it's not a conventional war. And we keep saying this is an asymmetrical battle. The Nigerian army, as it was then composed, everybody says they were very gallant, they went to Cameroon, they went to Liberia, but what they fail to understand is that when they go on these foreign missions, they're equipped by the UN and probably the African Union. So you don't have the issues of equipment, the kind of equipment they need to but we've taken 8, 9 months, 10 months and agreed that we needed to upgrade our military platforms, which is the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and also these weapons, when you bring them, you need to train. There was need for training of the people that were going to use this. And this, I mean, training for special forces takes minimum of 6 months.
A lot of people understand this argument, you know, about the fact that we needed equipment because we realized that the battle was tougher than we actually anticipated. But why did it take us 5 years to realize that? And over 13,000 Nigerians dying?
A lot of people say 5 years, but you must understand, Ebuka, there has been different phases in this battle. It keeps going, and I'll say something now, God forbid, but from what we are seeing happening in Libya now, with the ISIS transformation, because they are also evolving, we're going to have more regional problems, because this is a build-up from a lot of situations going on in Africa in general, or the world. So you have a lot of arms leaving Libya, coming towards Nigeria. We anticipated a small band of people who had become renegades. They evolved, got help from abroad. And all of this we've been trying to get momentum and trying to build up to. And you can see when everybody said, oh, the Nigerian army has not been performing. But when they got the platforms, everything they needed, you can see that they've pushed. They've recovered a lot of time.
But you people who are saying that this is only happening because he's trying to get re-elected. Why did he have to wait till this time?
No, there's a lot of build-up. The country is, first of all, let's take Chad, Niger. The president has been visiting Chad, has been visiting Niger. There were a lot of people that complained, why did he go and meet Derby? But they didn't understand the dynamics. The first time it happened, even after the Chibok girls, the president went to France. And a lot of people said, why did he go to France? Well, what was the essence of him going to France? They didn't understand that he needed to build international collaboration. You can see the African Union sending 7,500 soldiers to help in containing this thing. These are not issues that we must, I always say to people, we must not politicize anything that has to do with people who lay down their lives for Nigerians.
You mentioned politicizing there, and it does look like, to me and to a lot of Nigerians, that for a very long time, it looked like the presidency and members of the PDP were politicizing the war against terror in the Northeast, blaming the opposition for what was happening there, blaming members of the northern elites for what was happening there, as against tackling the issue head on. Why was that happening?
No.
And what's the assurance that it won't continue?
Blaming people who should be blamed, because some of these people didn't take responsibility. A lot of people say it's the president's fault, but nobody looks at the other side. Nobody looks at, I'll tell you something. Yesterday we had the march for our youths, for our troops, that happened in Lagos and in Abuja. And there was one that happened in Cameroon and I think Niger Republic. If you see the turnout in Niger Republic and the turnout in Cameroon, compared to what we have in Nigeria. I always said Nigeria's problem is 10% the government and 90% the citizens.
Do you think the turnout would have been different if that march for the troops happened in, say, 2012, when people still were in solidarity with the government? Why did people have become disillusioned? Because the government sort of didn't, in a lot of people's faces, responsibility wasn't taken as against blame.
No, the question is, why did it not happen? The question is, you said what would have happened if it had happened. No, the question should be, why did it not happen? Why did it take this long for Nigerians to galvanize support for our troops? Regardless, I tell you what, I think the Nigerian army has been very audacious and gallant, considering the kind of situation they were put in. They didn't expect it. The kind of arms and ammunition that they were given were not suited for them. Now we just got 50 T-72 tanks. We just got different assortments of weaponry. We got, in fact, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of complications in this thing. We can't just blame the president. You can see that it's just recently the AU took a position. It's just recently Chad and Niger became interested in it. And when you begin to have this collaboration, I'm sorry, but it's not a political, it just happened that at the time when the army requested for 6 weeks was when they had gotten all the arms and ammunition, and they looked at it vis-a-vis the situation Nigeria was going into, an election.
But you have to understand that it's only very interesting that it's so convenient that this thing just happens just at the time of election. They want 6 weeks more. I mean, you can't blame any Nigerian. This thing started way before 2010 even, but the first bomb went off in 2010.
Yes.
And since then, it's gotten worse. 2011, 2012. 2013,
they didn't have
2014.
The army wasn't.
I don't know. Do you really think Nigerians should sit back and just say, okay, yes, it took us 5 years to buy equipment to fight the terror group that grew in our face?
Do you remember that these equipments were not even being sold to us in the first place? But let me say this: military equipment and military hardware are not stuff you just pick off the shelf. You need, and that's why the terrorists were getting, the Boko Haram sect were getting their arms illegally. Of course, they're an illegal army, so they can afford to go anywhere and pick. When we even tried to buy arms from South Africa, you saw what happened. You saw the backlash that came when they said Nigeria, and that was out of desperation to get these arms. That is a sign to tell you that the government has been serious before now to try and acquire these arms. Listen, I have friends in the intelligence community. I know for 2 years what my friend kept telling me, that they tried to get, in fact, we have Cobra helicopters. What we tried to get weren't Cobra helicopters. We tried to get Apache helicopters. They refused. The American government refused to sell to us. Why? Because some people had gone to America and said that we're committing human rights offenses against Nigeria, Boko Haram, it's just a lot of stories. A lot of stories. But when this died down, we went to Israel. Israel was about to sell to us. America actually intervened and said, do not sell to Nigeria. At the end of the day, we settled for Cobra helicopters. You can see what has been happening since we got this equipment. These things take time. And I also say this: nobody should at any point think that because of an election, that's why it's now time to take action. No, look at the build-up, look at the stories, look at what has been happening it's in public domain.
Speaking of build-up and how things have been happening, let's talk about the Chibok girls for a little bit now, because that was also something that was handled extremely poorly, with information by the military, giving the press conference today saying, oh, the girls have been found. The next day saying, oh, we're not sure they've been found. Oh, the girls have been rescued. The girls are not even missing. There are no girls are even missing. Like, it was so disturbing that the federal government and the military couldn't come out with a single statement saying, this is what we're doing, to either find these girls or actually say, okay, the girls are not missing and we're not doing anything about it. Why was that so much confusion? And you would understand that that's why Nigerians don't understand why security is being handled this way.
I try to stay away from the Chibok girls situation because, first of all, the Chibok girls shouldn't have been in school at the time, because the Minister of Education.
I think we've gone back.
No. They shouldn't. Let's trace this, because anytime anybody brings up an issue, it's always good to get to the roots of these issues. The stories that emanated after this. Remember, you have a situation where you have people on ground. The information they have is scathing. The information is not accurate. When the principal of the school was called, there were different stories flying around. Listen, these are the same people that the army meets to get this information. Imagine they had given the army this same information. One story today, first of all, it was 120. The next day, it was 220. And the army, immediately they get this information, is relating it back to command, their command. And then command feeds people only for them to get back. And which is why a lot of people say the president didn't take action immediately. And I said, that's not true. Because I know immediately it happened, all military commands were called to the villa. And there was a question of what is really going on. It took a while to get the facts. And then there was this question, did we not tell these people to shut down these schools? Nobody, till today, nobody is looking at Borno State governor and asking him, why on earth did you leave that school? And even if you were going to keep the school open, why did you not alert the security people and say, I have people in this school. What is happening to them? Nobody blames them, or everybody says somebody should go and bring back some girls. And really, to be honest, that issue has been over-politicized. In fact, there's a countdown now saying, the girls are gone for this if you don't do it. I was at the debate at the Hilton, I think 3-4 weeks ago. The guys that sat down behind me were APC people, and they were still the same bring back our girls people. It leads you to question that, has this issue become so political? These are people's kids.
But they're Nigerians.
Yes, these are people's kids. There shouldn't there should be no politics attached to this. This should be, let's find out what has happened to these girls. But the truth about it is now there's an advance within the scenario, the setting of whatever happened. The soldiers are making grounds, and I'm very certain that within the next 1 or 2, 3 weeks, like the president said, we'll get to the bottom of this issue.
Well, I mean, if we talk security, I'm sure we'll need 3 hours because there's so much to talk about. The Buniyadi boys that were killed were celebrated the first anniversary of their death.
Does anybody celebrate the soldiers that have lost their lives, the families that have
just before we round up with security, now I want to touch on something that happened, I think towards the end of last year, or was it early this year, where members of, the Joe Volunteer Force and members of former militants, if I'll use that word, made this declaration in the presence of a sitting PDP governor and a member of Mr. President's team, saying something along the lines of, if Mr. President loses, what will happen to Nigeria and all of that. And Mr. President has never really spoken up against any of these things I said. And he hasn't been said once or twice. My point being, why does he ignore these things? And then when it looks like a trend, when it now gets too late, it's when he acts. Why is he not distancing himself from these militants who keep making the statements?
First of all,
at least you're a member of his campaign organization. You don't think that's troubling?
Yeah, you said that there was a sitting governor. There was no sitting governor when those statements were made. The context of those statements, I'm sure you had an interview recently with one of the people purported to have made those statements, and he corrected the assertion that there was no statement. I am from the Niger Delta. I'm South-South. I will not subscribe. This is a democracy. I enjoy democracy as it is. It will profit everybody in Nigeria if democracy continues. The president has come out during his interview media chat and said if he loses the election, he's well and good, he's ready to go back home. So that tells you the character and person of the president. You see, these assertions have come from both, but there are people in the opposition. The DG of the campaign of the opposing presidential candidate has said he will form a parallel government. This is somebody, and I remember that interview clearly. He said he wouldn't even go to court. And this is somebody that was brought into power by the courts. So if we have the DG, and I've not heard the DG, I'm very certain I've not heard the DG of our presidential campaign make any statements. Like, the individuals are free to make statements. You think the president will go around arresting Ango Abdullahi and every other person that has made statements from the north? No.
Before we go quickly, how do you think Mr. President is faring with his election? Do you think he's
very well? He's already. I mean, in terms of, you see, Ebuka.
But I mean, it's clear that you guys are scared this time. The PDP is a little worried, much more than they have been in the last 4 elections.
I don't think that's the issue. I think right now the PDP is coasting very safely to victory. But what individuals like myself and the party have always insisted on is carrying people along. The communication. We accept that the communication hasn't been altogether too fantastic, but it also comes with the character of the president.
Was that why the elections were moved?
No, I think as lawyers, I would take a legal perspective to this. If that election had held on the 14th of February, we would not have had a winner. If the PDP had won, the APC would have gone to court, and for good reason. If the PDP had won, the APC would have gone to court. So I don't see anybody saying that. I mean, I attended a program by the I think it was International Republican Institute, and they actually posited that we're not ready for the election. I said at that time we're not ready, and you can see now everybody is gearing up for this eventual success of our president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ebuka.
I'm looking forward to next week because the debate is going to be interesting. If this is just a prelude to it, I know I have a lot more questions to ask, but there's never enough time. Yeah, thank you very much. See you next week.
See you next week.
We'll see you guys in a moment. Please stay with us.